The rotors sliced the night like whispers of a ghost, steady, invisible, precise. No one saw it coming. No one heard it coming either, not until the wind shifted and the trees started to tremble, as though bracing for something ancient and powerful to descend. Somewhere in the darkest folds of a war-torn valley, beneath a sky choked with clouds, an Apache helicopter emerged from the void like a shadow given form. It had no lights, no call signs, no escort. It moved like it didn't belong to this world, a phantom in a battlefield already saturated with chaos. The blackout was total, not just in the skies, but on every frequency, every radar. Command didn't know who it was. The forward base had been on alert for 3 hours. Sensors picked up an incoming object, but it wasn't responding to identification protocols. Not friend, not foe, just something. And when the outline of the Apache crept into view, with its rotors whispering secrets to the night, every soldier on the ground froze, like deer catching the eyes of something far more intelligent in the woods. "Sir, it's not one of ours," the radio tech had said, voice brittle. But the commander didn't reply. He was already outside, staring at the unmarked gunship as it hovered low, wind kicking up sand and plastic wrappers and memories. The Apache came down in the center of the compound like it had done it 1,000 times before. Perfect descent. Smooth. Controlled. And when it touched the dirt, the engine didn't sputter, it sighed. Silence. No one disembarked. No one moved. Until the cockpit glass cracked open, and a figure stepped out, slow, calculated. He wasn't wearing a name tag. Not even a patch. Just black gear, tight to the body, and a helmet that didn't reflect light. His face was invisible, swallowed by shadow. One of the guards stepped forward, weapon half raised. "Identify yourself." The man tilted his head. His voice, when it came, was not a growl or a bark. It was something worse, calm. "I flew where no one was supposed to." There was a moment, sharp, metallic, where time stopped moving. And then it all came loose. Because this wasn't just a pilot. And this wasn't just any Apache. It had come from somewhere they weren't allowed to speak about. Somewhere classified above top secret. Somewhere even the generals feared to acknowledge. The man walked past them like they didn't exist, boots pressing into dust that still remembered blood. And as he passed, the radio, long dead from the blackout, sparked back to life. One signal. A tone. Not a word. Just a sound. And every soldier who heard it suddenly understood. This was no rescue mission. This was a message. He didn't come back to bring someone out. He came back to show someone got in. And no one knew how, or why, or if it would happen again. But the Apache remained, silent on the tarmac, like a tomb that held answers no one wanted. The man disappeared into the base. And the wind, once more, returned to silence. Inside the base, doors opened without codes. Security systems didn't so much as flicker. Cameras followed him but recorded nothing. Only static, only silence. He moved like a memory, returning to a place it had never been but always belonged. A few brave soldiers tried to follow. They didn't make it far. Corporal James Rudd, 23, Midwest-born and eager-eyed, was one of the first. He made it down the hallway behind the figure, maybe 20 feet, before the overhead lights began to flicker. Not a normal flicker, but a pulsing rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. A warning. Rudd hesitated. The air around him suddenly felt thick, electric, like a thunderstorm pressing down against his chest. Then his radio hissed, even though it had no battery in it. "Don't follow." The voice didn't sound like the man. It sounded like many. Like more than one person speaking through one throat. And then Corporal Rudd's vision blurred, and he stumbled back, falling against the wall. He would later be found babbling about colors he couldn't describe, and a door that opened inside his mind. The others didn't try again. The man moved deeper, into the old wing. The wing that had been sealed after the last incident. The wing where records stopped, where names faded from rosters, and promotions were handed out to people who no longer existed. He passed through it all, unauthorized, unchecked, unseen, until he reached it. The vault. No one had opened it in over a decade. The codes had been buried, the clearance shredded. It was welded shut, concreted over, forgotten by design. But the moment he stood before it, the wall began to vibrate. Slowly, painfully, like something inside recognized him. Then the concrete cracked, split, and fell. The steel beneath glowed, and hissed, and then it opened. Not outward, not inward, but sideways, like it was never meant to obey the laws of this world. Inside, there was no room. There was space. Dark, cold, endless. A stairway descended into nothingness, and the man took it without hesitation, vanishing into the kind of dark that doesn't just swallow light, it forgets it ever existed. And just like that, he was gone. The base fell quiet again. The Apache, still untouched, still unscanned, powered down on its own. No one could get close to it. Every time they tried, something interfered, a sickness in the air, a pressure in the skull, a voice that whispered things no one should hear. Back at Command HQ, 2,000 miles away, analysts stared at the screens. Point 1 showed thermal. 1 showed radar. 1 showed satellite. None showed him. Not the man. Not the aircraft. Only absence. A hollow space where something was supposed to be. Then one of the monitors, ancient, analog, flickered to life. A single file blinked open. No one had touched it. No one could have. It read, Subject R-117, exfil complete. Phase 2 initiated. Below it, one line. Do not engage. They didn't. They wouldn't. Because the last time someone did, a city went dark. For 3 days. And when the lights came back on, no one remembered living there. Just empty buildings. Cold food still on plates. Phones still ringing. And in every mirror, a flicker of someone watching from inside. And so now, the message was clear. Whoever had flown that Apache wasn't asking for permission. He wasn't part of any team. Not anymore. He was the mission. And whatever he'd brought back from that vault had never left this earth, because it had never belonged to it. And now, it was awake, watching, choosing, waiting, for night to fall again. Because in total blackout, you can't see what moves, but it can always see you, and it remembers who tried to forget it. Hours passed. The base pretended to return to normal, but the air hadn't cleared. It still carried the weight of something unseen, like dust from a cave that had been sealed too long. Soldiers avoided the tarmac where the Apache rested. Even the mechanics, usually fearless, stayed away. Tools rusted overnight. Batteries drained without explanation. One of the junior techs who wandered too close had a nosebleed that wouldn't stop for 12 minutes straight. He said he saw something move inside the cockpit, even though no one was in it. And still, no orders came. No recall. No recovery. No debrief. Just silence. Until midnight, when the lights across the base blinked once, then died. Backup generators hummed to life, but they barely held. The walls groaned. Radios spit static. The air turned cold. And then, from deep below, where the vault door had opened, a low sound began to rise. Not a siren. Not an engine. A hum. It was mechanical, but not entirely. Organic, but not alive. A frequency no one could place, but everyone felt. It crawled through the bones. Vibrated teeth. Twitched muscles. It wasn't just noise, it was language. But no one could translate it. They could only hear it. And once you heard it, it stayed. Buried behind your thoughts. Waiting. Something was coming back up those stairs. The cameras at the lower levels, the ones still functioning, caught flickers. Blurs. Heat distortions shaped like a man, but stretched, wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Moving in pulses, not steps. As if the body hadn't yet remembered how to be human. Then the hallways began to freeze over. Thin veins of frost reached up the walls like fingers. Screws popped from the ceiling. Electrical panels sparked and failed. One soldier who tried to intercept the figure collapsed instantly, his body seized, and his eyes rolled white. He began speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. 4 voices, actually. All layered. All perfect. he said. Phase 2 is not containment. It is conditioning. Then he went silent, comatose, breathing, but vacant. And still, the figure climbed, floor by floor, bringing with him not just the cold, but the pull. The kind of gravity that bends more than just metal. It bends memory. People began to forget what they were doing mid-task. Names slipped from minds. Maps turned blank. Entire corridors of the base disappeared from internal blueprints, until only one location remained. The control room. The heart. Where the failsafes were. Where the codes lived. Where the world's most dangerous secrets waited in encrypted silence. The figure stopped just outside it. Didn't break in. Didn't force his way. The door opened for him. And inside, the officers, hardened veterans who'd seen too much, rose slowly from their seats. One by one. Not in defense. Not in fear. But in recognition. Because they'd seen him before. In the classified footage. In the file marked Project Revenant. A name buried 30 years ago. A name scrubbed from every system. But a name they could never forget. Because he was the one they sent to the other side. To the place behind the blackout. The place beyond the veil. They were never supposed to bring him back. But now he was here. And he spoke. Not to them, but through them. As their mouths moved in unison, their eyes glowing faintly, they said, Phase 3 begins when the world forgets it ever ended. And just like that, every satellite feed watching the base blinked out. The Apache on the runway lifted off on its own. No pilot, no signal. Just rose into the sky like it was answering a call from the stars themselves. It climbed higher and higher until the clouds swallowed it whole, leaving behind nothing except static and a low hum still echoing in the walls. The next day, when the Pentagon tried to reach the base, there was no response. A drone was sent. It arrived to find nothing but dust. No buildings. No vehicles. No heat. No signs of life. Only one thing remained. A faint imprint in the dirt, perfectly shaped. The landing skids of an Apache. And beneath it, scorched into the earth, 2 words. We remember. And across the globe, without warning, certain people began to hum. The same frequency. All at once. Even the ones who had never heard it before. They turned slowly toward the sky. And smiled. Because they knew. Phase 3 wasn't coming. It had already begun. ChatGPT said. Somewhere in northern Montana, a child woke from sleep, eyes wide in the dark, humming a tune she'd never learned. Her mother, standing at the doorway, dropped the glass of water in her hand. The sound wasn't just humming, it was the sound. The one she'd heard in her dreams every night since she left the program. Thousands of miles away, a retired intelligence officer named Wyatt Clemens sat bolt upright in his cabin. 4 years, he'd lived off-grid, no radio, no phone, no signal. But the humming found him anyway. Through the silence. Through the pine. He stumbled toward the old wooden floorboard he'd sworn never to touch again. Underneath it, a case he hadn't opened in 21 years. The seal read, Project Revenant, Failsafe. With shaking hands, he opened it. Inside were 2 items. A photograph, scorched at the edges, of a black helicopter landing in a desert. No timestamp. No location. And a note. If he returns, don't run. Remember. Wyatt collapsed back into his chair, breathing heavily. Too late. The world had already forgotten. And now it was remembering all at once. In Seoul, 12 elevators froze simultaneously in different skyscrapers. All 12 emitted a hum, same frequency. Security footage showed each lift stopped at the 13th floor. Except none of those buildings had a 13th floor. In Cairo, for satellites re-entered Earth's atmosphere without warning. No heat signature. No trajectory. Just appeared in the sky before disintegrating mid-air, not with fire, but with a cold that turned oxygen to crystal. And in Langley, an emergency protocol activated on its own. Red silence. It had only one function: shut down every server. Erase every log. purge every record of the pilot, the mission, the vault. But the system failed. Because something within the system fought back. Lines of code rewrote themselves. Firewalls collapsed. Screens across the agency flickered with a single phrase, typed over and over. Who flew the Apache? The question rippled through intelligence networks, showing up on servers in Beijing, Moscow, Berlin, and even buried defense databases in Antarctica, systems not touched since the Cold War. All asking. All receiving the same blank return. And then, new footage emerged. From nowhere. From before. It showed a camera drone approaching the vault decades ago. The pilot from the Apache, standing in the same spot. Same gear. Same stance. Only this was 30 years ago. He hadn't aged a day. The timestamp was verified. Same face. Same presence. Same shadow that bent the light wrong. In the footage, he turned to the camera and smiled. And whispered one word. Again. Every person who watched it reported the same side effect. Dreams. Not memories. Dreams of black stairwells. Dreams of glass ceilings cracking above stars. Dreams of helicopters hovering above ancient cities buried in snow, cities not on any map. And always, always the hum. That sound you don't hear with your ears, but with your blood. Somewhere in the Pacific, deep underwater, sensors on a classified listening post began recording rhythmic tremors. Not tectonic. Not seismic. Patterned. As if something was pulsing, breathing, waking. And across the globe, 12 children born on the same date, August 29, 2004, began drawing the same symbol with crayon. A spiral. Split down the center. Wrapped in rotors. They didn't know each other. They didn't even speak the same language. But when asked what it meant, they gave the same answer, in chillingly flat voices. It's where he came from. And when asked who, they all answered together. The pilot. And now the question wasn't who flew the Apache. It was, what flew it? And why did it come back? Because deep beneath what's left of that base, the vault, though sealed again, continues to hum. And somewhere in the silence of the earth, another Apache is rising. No lights, no mockings, no destination. Just a whisper in the dark. Phase 4, arrival. And this time, it won't land alone. In Greenland, where the ice never truly sleeps, a seismic monitoring station blinked out just after midnight. Its final transmission wasn't data, it was a sound file. 6 seconds long. Nothing but the low-frequency hum. When analyzed, the sound revealed a terrifying structure. It wasn't random. It was encoded. Buried within were coordinates. In the middle of the Weddell Sea. Coordinates no agency recognized. Coordinates no satellite dared to photograph. But the pilot, had already been there. And was going back. In the days that followed, strange weather patterns emerged. Not storms. Not heat waves. Something else. Areas of atmospheric silence. Pockets where the wind refused to move. Where birds didn't fly. Where GPS stopped working. The military called them null zones. Civilians called them dead sky. But anyone who entered never called them anything again. And still, the frequency spread. It began to infect music. A low tone in a pop song no producer remembered adding. A strange vibration in orchestras across Europe, felt but not heard. Tibetan monks falling silent mid-chant, eyes widening, mouth slowly forming the spiral symbol on the temple floor. Religions began to disagree, not over doctrine, but over what was coming. Because it wasn't in the texts. It wasn't in the heavens. It was returning from below. In Tokyo, a subway camera caught a black figure standing alone on a platform, long before the first train. It looked like a man in flight gear. Helmet on. Head lowered. Still. 4:17 minutes. When security approached, the figure vanished. Not ran, not walked. Vanished, leaving only a symbol drawn in condensation on the wall. That same spiral. Split by rotors. Turning inward. They checked the footage. Frame by frame. The figure appeared between two frames. One instant. Empty platform. Next frame. He was there. And no camera caught him arriving. The world's last confirmed sighting of the Apache came from the ISS. A faint silhouette hovering above the cloud line. No engine heat. No rotor movement. Just stillness. 20,000 feet higher than any helicopter should be. And inside NASA's Black Lab, a system flagged something in the footage. A shape emerging beneath the Apache. Not a shadow. Not a trick of light. But a structure. Massive. Angular. Rising. It had no name. It was not made by human hands. And yet, in the deepest archives of ancient star maps, there was one match. A pattern carved into obsidian in South America, Sumeria, and on an unearthed meteorite held in secret by the Vatican. All three showed a vessel in the sky, a man beneath it, and a spiral breaking. Project Revenant hadn't just found something. It had awakened it. And the pilot, or whatever wore his shape, wasn't returning with information. He was returning with invitation. Because the vault had never been a prison. It was a gateway. And we didn't open it. It opened itself. Now, across every major observatory, an impossible signal repeats itself every night at 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated, broadcast from nowhere, yet heard everywhere. It says the same two words in every tongue ever spoken. He flies. And beneath it, a countdown. Time remaining. 12 days. No one knows what happens when it reaches zero. But all over the world, helicopters are going dark. Mid-flight. Mid-combat. Mid-rescue. Not crashing. Landing. And they're landing in perfect circles. Each one bigger than the last. Each one humming. Each one waiting. Because when he flew the first Apache, he came alone. But this time, they're all coming back. The countdown reached zero at 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated. No sirens. No shockwaves. No apocalyptic fire in the sky. Just silence. Total, unnatural silence. Across deserts, mountains, oceans, cities, helicopters began to rise, each in complete blackout, no pilots visible. The skies filled not with noise, but with presence. People stepped outside instinctively, as if drawn by something older than memory. Children hummed in perfect unison. The spiral symbol appeared on buildings, in clouds, on skin. And then, he returned. Hovering high above the earth, the original Apache hovered still, a dark crown upon the sky. From its shadow, a door opened, not downward, but outward, peeling space like paper. And from that breach, shapes emerged. Silent. Watching. Remembering. The man stepped forward, the same as before, untouched by time, eyes aglow with what no human should carry. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Across the globe, those who had dreamt now understood. Earth was never a prison, but a proving ground. The blackout wasn't to hide him from us, it was to hide us from what waits beyond. And now, the veil was gone. The vault was open. The sky was no longer ours. And for the first time, humanity looked up and remembered.